Steve Hassan. Yes, Dr. Steve Hassan. And it is um, almost the end of 2022, and Hanukkah's happening, and Christmas is about to happen. There's this massive storm, freezing cold, and all kinds of terrible things coming our way. I hope people aren't going to be too disturbed in their travel plans and such. But I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about the stresses of getting together again with family and whether or not there's been some harm in the past years to relationships. Um, but I'm a big fan of being warm and respectful and curious. And also, I'm a big fan of recommending if you have been out of touch with someone or blocked them on social media or said some very upsetting things to them about their beliefs or their involvements with groups, to basically just tell the person how much you care about them and you miss them and you want them in their life and apologize, and just say, can we do a reboot or can we have a reset? And depending on the reaction, you might need to say, tell me what you feel like I need to do for you to feel more safe or more comfortable to reboot with me and move forward. And in some cases, it'll be making an agreement that for the next few days or this visit, we're going to take politics off the topic list of things to interact with, that we're going to focus on happy memories, looking at videos, looking at photographs, recalling things, singing songs, watching sports, things that are not going to be too controversial. But also, this is going to be my mantra for 2023. I really want people to learn how to be better listeners. Talk less, listen more. And the best thing is to ask from a curious, respectful place. Tell me more about that, or help me step into your shoes, or uh, tell me what you perceive of me, and what changes you would like to see me make for the coming new year. Get out of the right wrong frame or the one up, one down frame. We're all humans, we all make mistakes. Adopt a learning approach, a feedback, open to feedback approach. Um, and then I also want to encourage people. This is a technique I tell many of my clients: create a scale in your mind, 1 to 10. 10 being very resourceful and 0 being like I need to like be by myself and not interact with anybody because I'm so resourceless that I don't want to say or do things that are harmful. And I really want to encourage people to develop more self-awareness, body awareness of how resourceful am I feeling at this moment. And if you're really stressed out, you know, pick a number. Am I a 3? Am I a 4? And then take a few deep breaths, long, slow exhales, and see if the number goes up. Usually it does get more resourceful as you get out of the stream of worrying thoughts or anxious thoughts. And you just get back into the here and now, back into your body. And when you're with family and friends, if you're feeling like your stresses are amplifying and your resources are getting lower, I'm a big fan of going to the bathroom or taking a walk, going play with the dog or the cat or whatever pets you happen to have access to. Go to the bathroom, take some cold water, wash your face, do some deep breathing, because again, you really want to maximize your interactions. So by the end of the family event, you're feeling warmer and everyone's feeling warmer towards you. The rapport and trust is going higher and higher. Um, so I've opened the gates for questions to be asked of me, and someone is saying something about post cult greetings from Cheshire, England. Hi, Cheshire, England. Um, there is something I did want to share. I wasn't planning to talk about it at this live, but if you've heard about the protests in China regarding the government policies, um, I've been in touch with someone who's in touch with net activists who have told me that my bite model has been translated into Chinese and is circulating around, and I'm hoping that we'll get a blog written about that with the Chinese version of the bite model. It's pretty exciting for me. Um, so, first question: what if my family doesn't respect my boundaries? When I'm asked a general question like that, are we talking about mother, father, sister, brother? Are they all uniform? And what do you mean by boundaries? If you say I'm gluten free and they're giving you wheat, that's a violation of boundaries in which you can say, thank you very much. The bread looks amazing, but I'm going to have a bad reaction to it. So I really need to find some gluten free bread. Um, and if siblings or dad, are saying things like, I don't want to talk about something, um, depends on what it is. But you can say, I hear you. If they say, I don't want to talk about X, I hear you. Well, I do want to let you know that this is a topic that is of interest to me. So I'm fine with respecting you, um, not asking me things right now. But is there a better time in the near future when we can talk about it, or what would need to happen for us to be able to make a limited amount of time to take turns and talk about something and really listen to each other? I also want to plug Celeste Headley, Headlee, who she's done some TED Talks about listening, and she wrote a book about listening that I think is fantastic. Because so many people think they're listening, but actually they're formulating the next answer in their head and they're not listening, and really paying attention to the person and then being able to even paraphrase back to them or mirror back to them what they just said and asking them, did I get it correctly? That's going to increase rapport and trust building, and it's going to make things better. Um, Post cult, sorry, I can't reveal my name. I'm fading from JWs. Okay, so um, if your whole family is in a cult like the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they have to report you if they think that you're deviating or sinning, or falling away or something like that. Um, that is a much bigger topic than we can cover today. I definitely recommend Freedom of Mind, which is my book on how to talk to cult members and such. But the general approach is don't talk about the leader, the doctrine, or the policy of the group directly, but talk about another group or another situation that they won't be triggered by, that won't get them into trouble or you into trouble, and ask their opinion about it. The thing that I've spent a lot of time the last few years researching is the internet and its impact on the human mind and on culture in general. I don't know if people have listened to my podcast, The Influence Continuum, or come to my website, freedomofmind.com, and looked at the videos of the audio interviews. But I interviewed a psychiatrist and social neuroscientist, Carl Marcy, who wrote a really important book called Rewired, Protecting Your Brain in the Digital Age. And it's nothing about cults, but it's all about the impact of the digital environment on people's brains developmentally. And so it's a topic that people may be open to discussing, learning about. I also love the documentary The Social Dilemma, done by Tristan Harris and the Center for Humane Technology. Again, nothing about cults, but it's all about social media and how they program their algorithms to make people addicted, to capture their attention, and also so they can make more money selling advertising to people. Um, the next thing is my husband got very defensive when I bought Combating Cult Mind Control. Is there a way to approach this? Um, it all depends. If somebody is defensive, the first reaction is, I notice that you're exhibiting, like you're upset that I bought this book. I'm really curious to hear what this ex Mooney, guy has to say about his experience in the Moonies. And I am aware that he works with people who've been trafficked and labor trafficking and sex trafficking. You find what might be of interest to the person to talk about. And the bottom line is I think that if you're in a family or a relationship where your partner doesn't want you to read a particular book, um, that's a whole topic to discuss, because I do think that in this day and age, people should be able to decide what information they want to consume. And when it comes to my book, asking people their opinions, or offering to read it together with the person, and stop and discuss things as they come up, things that they don't agree with or things they agree with, is a great idea. Let's see. The next question is my opinion of aesthetic realism, Eli Siegel. Oh, I've helped a whole lot of people get out of aesthetic realism. It's a cult that was based in New York. And so I definitely think it was a mind control cult, a nasty one. And yeah, so I know a lot about that group, and I believe there are former members who have set up websites. Um, and that's a whole nother project that I want to encourage people to think about if they've left a group, is to find out what's available on the internet and to try to like concentrate verified information about particular groups so that we can make it accessible to others who are asking like about aesthetic realism. And by the way, a technique that I like to recommend to folks using the internet for search is, you put the name Eli Siegel, for example, plus aesthetic realism in quotes, plus cult, or plus brainwashing. And don't just settle for the first 10 hits, but go 10 pages in, and you can find stuff. A lot of the best stuff on cults that were years ago is now been archived, so you can't even find it on the current internet. But if you go to archive.org, especially if you can locate the former URL of the website, it's up there. So that's exciting. Let's see. Jabbermocky says, "Greetings, all. Greetings. Are there any cult documentaries that are problematic or inaccurate to watch?" Yes, most of them, uh, or incomplete. Um, I'll mention Wild Wild Country. It's about the Rajneesh cult. He died. They rebranded the cult leader as Osho. It was on Netflix, I believe. A lot of people watched it, and the two people featured are still true believers in Rajneesh. One was an attorney for the cult, one was a high official in the cult. No former members, no cult experts, nothing about brainwashing and mind control. Um, so it gives a very inaccurate picture from my point of view about the horrors of this group. If you've watched the documentary, what they do show is pretty horrible, but they don't explain social psychology. They don't explain that Rajneesh was a hypnotist. Um, and I recently heard a podcast, a little bit culty. My friends Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ains had Erin Robbins on, who was a devotee of Rajneesh. That's a good one to listen to if you want to know more about that particular cult. And what you should know is that the people who were very involved with that cult have many of them have gone on and started their own cults where they still worship Rajneesh, but they're doing their own version of it. So Osho is still very much around. There are many other documentaries that I'm frustrated because things could be done in a way where people watch it and it's not just entertaining, but it's actually educational. So I'm hoping some changes will be made in the future with documentaries. Jabbermocky said, "Do you have any suggestions for minimizing our disdain for Trump cultists specifically so we can actually bear to deal with them socially?" Wow. Well, I wrote The Cult of Trump. Um, I know a lot about this subject. And I think the key is understanding that people's minds have been hacked largely through disinformation, cyber warfare, and psychological warfare. What I wrote about in my book is fourth generation warfare. And so the bottom line is if you understand mind control, then you feel compassion for people who are still in that cult. But just know that there's an authentic self that is having doubts. And a lot of people are starting to question Trump. It's very interesting to me that that a lot of people are going, maybe he's not such a good guy after all. I mean, I grew up 1.3 miles from Donald Trump in Queens, so I've known about Trump my whole life. Um, but anyway, the key is just regulating your own resourcefulness around people who like Trump or QAnon believers and such, and just do your best to build rapport and trust and have respectful conversations where you're curious. Ask them to go back in time and reflect on how they came to believe that Trump was a good person or believe that QAnon was legitimate. So that's my comment. Lots more coming in. So let's see. Dark Horse said, Osho, I have a friend who went to India on a retreat there. He's very defensive. I just asked him your question, Steve. Do you remember what was going on before you joined? Um, so the thing is most people talk to persuade versus talk to listen and get closer to a person and expand your own worldview by incorporating other people's perspectives. So if you notice you say something and somebody reacts defensively, note that and say, I noticed you reacted the way you did. Is it something that I said, or is it the way that I said it? Please teach me, because I would like to have a conversation with you about a subject. Some cults, many cults, program their members to never discuss anything negative about the cult leader, the doctrine, or the policy with non believers. And even though the person may have left 10 years ago or 20 years ago, they still may be walking around with that indoctrination. So it's not going to be one conversation, it's going to be a series of conversations over time. And the more you're willing to make yourself vulnerable and share personal stories about yourself, the more likely it will be that people will feel less defensive and be willing to, share things that they're not so happy about or proud about. Um, Lots more going on here. So, do you think society has changed to be more confrontational and disapproving of cultic behaviors and groups? Thank you for all you've done, Steve. Love your takedown of Roy Masters back in the day. Um, well, let me just comment. Roy Masters, I wrote about him in Combating Cult Mind Control. He was a diamond merchant, if I remember, who learned hypnosis and then became a messiah figure. He had a foundation of human understanding out in Oregon. He had a radio show where he was hypnotizing people. And I actually got to be on a TV show set with him, sitting next to him. It was quite interesting. And I think that the video's up online somewhere. But I remember saying that what he was doing was hypnosis, not meditation. And he said some rude things. And I said, you seem so assured of yourself. Why don't you and I go to a cabin somewhere for 3 days and we'll see who comes out and what comes out? Something like that. Anyway, so back to your question. Do you think society's changed to be more confrontational and disapproving of cultic behaviors and groups? I don't know. I do know when I first wrote The Cult of Trump, everybody was very scared to call it a cult. And then over time, more and more people in the media and politicians were calling the cult of Trump. Um, but interestingly, I've been censored. You would think that if media people call it the cult of Trump, they might have the author of the book and the guy who's been studying cults on. But whatever the corporate media structures are, I think they find this material too threatening. Maybe they think it's gonna harm advertisers if people understand manipulation and mind control too much. But the answer is I don't know. I don't want people to be confrontational with cult members, though. I just think it's counterproductive and it drives them deeper in. Jabberwocky says, thank you, Stephen. Appreciate your expertise in humanity. Trying my best, my friend. The recovering Hunbot said, I've been following what started out as a multi level marketing group but evolved into a cult of personality led by Ash Mafara. I don't know that person. It's very devious, preying on senior citizens in developing countries. Um, the truth is that there are way too many destructive cults, and there's this splintering effect that happens. Somebody's in a cult, they don't get counseled, they exit, maybe they're kicked out, and then they start their own version of the cult. And so there are many splinters of splinters all over the place. Um, but I've tried in my work, in my books, and in my podcasts to try to give case examples that then people can have a framework to then look at a whole category of cults like Bible cults or Eastern cults or pseudo psychology cults or large group awareness cults or multi level marketing cults. Um, the more people in America understand MLMs are bad, the more the MLMs go to developing countries to find people who haven't learned all the negatives. I do want to say I've done some blogs on multi level marketing. I've been part of two international conferences on multi level marketing. MLMconference.com is where the videos are. Um, let's try to catch a few more questions. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Hassan. What do you think of the incel community and what's your take on them? Would you say they are a cult? I think your work could benefit a lot of young men who are in these groups. So incel people are typically young men who are unsuccessful with interacting with girls and women, and so they are down on women. Some of them have committed violent acts. Do I think it's a cult? So, what I want to say categorically, if you've heard me before, you've seen my influence continuum, and I talk about ethical influence to unethical influence, and the more behavior control, information, thought, and emotional control, the worse a group is. So there are groups along the entire continuum. The issue is how much are they into dogma, hatred, fear, obedience, etc. And so people can pretty much assess themselves how bad a group is. I think incels are pretty pathetic and um, problematic to say the least. Um, Paul K says, Hi, Steve, former NAR IHOP KC member here, International House of Pancakes. No, I'm just joking. Sorry. Couldn't help it. What do you think of some of the most common ways of thinking that ex cult members take with them even after they leave the cult? Well, I'd say they tend to be very black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil, very simplistic. Um, I would say that depending on whether they were born or raised in the group, it's going to be more pervasive indoctrination versus people like myself who was recruited into Moonies when I was 19. I already had a sense of self and identity and values and such. So for me, it was more a process of trying to go back in time and remember what I was interested in. And in my case, I was an English major and I read books all the time. And when I first got out of the Moonies, I couldn't concentrate. And I was depressed and ashamed and confused. And I literally had to force myself in small pieces to read and to concentrate and to remember what words meant. I actually bought a 400,000 word dictionary and literally went through the entire dictionary to retrain my brain about what words mean and how to use English again. Um, so I'm going to be wrapping up shortly. There's so much more to share. And I do want to say categorically that after 46, it's going to be 47 years in a few more months since my family rescued me from the Moonies, that I really believe in paying things forward. And if it wasn't for the love of my family, for the former Moonies and people who were involved with my intervention after I nearly died in a van crash, and all the therapists that I have gone to help me recover. And then, of course, all my teachers as I became a mental health professional and such. It's been quite a learning journey, and it's not over. And I want to really encourage people to realize that there's life after mind control cult. Um, I do want to share something. This morning I was speaking with a doctoral student who asked me to be on his committee. He was raised in the Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was telling me how he was in Germany when his mother converted to the JWs, and how he almost died from refusing a blood transfusion because they're negative. Anyway, he's in the United States, fluent English speaker. And I noticed as he was describing some of his JW experiences, a German accent uh, came out a little bit, and I pointed out to him, if you were indoctrinated in German, you really should talk to somebody who speaks fluent German, who knows about cults, to process your cult experience, because the way the brain works with neurons and learning pathways, um, if you're only functioning in English and you were indoctrinated in German, you're not going to be able to undo and rewire your neurons and be totally in the here and now and in your body. So I mentioned that to him, and he was like, "Whoa, nobody's ever mentioned that to me before." And I said, "Well, if you need a name of someone in Germany, I can give you one." Anyway, I just want to mention happy holidays. Life is short. I'm a big fan of gratefulness practice. In fact, I interviewed Christy Nelson, wrote a great book, recommend listening to it. Great holiday gift, by the way. I did an interview with her. You can check out the blog and the video with her. But just if you put your mind on worry, you're going to feel more anxious and worried. And if you put your mind on gratefulness, and I'm not saying to deny crappy things that are going on, pay attention to those. But if you put most of your attention on the good things and the benefits you have and all the body parts that are working as opposed to the ones that aren't, I think you're going to have a much better life. And minimize your time online is another piece that I'd like to suggest. Be with people in real life, and if there's an opportunity to call someone versus text them, call them or video message with them. Uh, and all I can say is thanks to my team at Freedom of Mind. We're getting more and more volunteers who are coming forward to help us gather information, organize it, write blogs, and I'm hoping to do more research and more writing in the coming year. And if you're not aware, I did a whole course that I just put on my website, a foundational course. It's aimed for mental health professionals and coaches, but it's really for anybody who wants a deeper dive into the understanding of how mind control works and how to undo it. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now. Thanks so much. Take care.